The rope burned into her wrists long before the fear truly settled in, because pain was something Mara Ellison had learned to endure in silence. What shattered her calm was the sound of laughter drifting across the open fields, carried by the warm daytime wind, sharp and careless, as she stood tied to an old oak tree at the edge of her family's farm. The sun was high, the sky painfully blue, and the world looked far too beautiful for the cruelty unfolding beneath it. In that moment, with dust clinging to her dress and her heart pounding louder than the cicadas, Mara understood something terrifying and profound. Evil often wears an ordinary face, and it rarely thinks it will be challenged. If this opening already has you feeling something, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Acts of kindness. If you believe in kindness and second chances, your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Mara had always been the quiet one in Briar Hollow, a farming town where everyone knew everyone, and silence was often mistaken for weakness. She woke before sunrise every day, feeding the animals, mending fences, and helping her aging father keep the land alive after her mother's passing. Her life was simple, honest, and rooted in soil and routine. But quiet lives, especially kind ones, sometimes attract cruelty from those who feel small inside. A group of local men, restless and bitter, had decided that Mara's gentleness made her an easy target. They mocked her clothes, her reserved nature, her refusal to fight back. Over time, their taunts grew bolder, and the town's indifference became a shield that allowed their behavior to escalate. That day, they crossed a line that could never be erased. Under the cruel excuse of teaching her a lesson, they dragged her from the barn, ignoring her trembling protests, and tied her to the oak tree where her grandfather once rested during harvest breaks. The bark scraped her skin as they tightened the rope, and humiliation burned deeper than the physical pain. She searched the fields desperately, hoping someone might see, but the farm stretched wide and empty under the afternoon sun. When the men finally walked away, still laughing, the silence they left behind was heavier than any sound. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Mara's arms ached, her throat tightened, and tears blurred the green of the fields she loved. Panic tried to take over, whispering that no one was coming, that this was what happened to girls who stayed quiet too long. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. It was not anger or revenge, but a steady resolve born from years of endurance. With shaking fingers, she reached into the pocket of her dress, fumbling for the old phone she always carried for emergencies on the farm. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped it, but muscle memory guided her to the one number she rarely needed to dial. Her husband, Elias Kane, was a man of few words and even fewer promises, but the ones he made were unbreakable. The world knew him as a decorated Delta Force operator, a soldier shaped by discipline and sacrifice. To Mara, he was simply the man who fixed broken gates without complaint, who listened more than he spoke, and who treated her quiet strength as something sacred. He was away on assignment, far from the farm, and Mara had never once used his work as a shield or a threat. She believed in handling her own battles, but tied to that tree, with fear closing in, she allowed herself to ask for help. The call connected, and though she could barely speak through the tears, the silence on the other end changed. Elias did not interrupt, did not question. He listened. When the call ended, Mara felt no immediate relief, only exhaustion and doubt. She rested her forehead against the rough bark and waited, unsure if help could truly arrive in time or if the damage was already done. The men returned as the sun dipped slightly lower, their shadows stretching long across the grass. They expected to find the same broken girl they left behind. Instead, they found someone still afraid but no longer alone inside. Mara lifted her head, meeting their eyes without pleading. Something in her expression unsettled them, though they could not say why. Before they could act, the distant sound of engines broke the stillness, growing louder with each passing second. What followed felt unreal, like a scene torn from a film yet grounded in unmistakable reality. Military vehicles rolled onto the dirt road bordering the farm, precise and controlled, their presence commanding immediate attention. Elias stepped out first, his posture calm but unyielding, the kind of stillness that spoke of contained power. He was not shouting, not rushing blindly. He assessed, calculated, and moved with purpose, supported by authorities who had been alerted moments earlier. The men's laughter evaporated, replaced by confusion and then fear as the weight of their actions came crashing down. Mara barely felt the rope loosen as Elias reached her, his hand steady, his focus entirely on her. The world narrowed to the warmth of his presence and the simple fact that she was safe. He draped his jacket around her shoulders, shielding her from the stares and the shame she never deserved to carry. Around them, justice unfolded swiftly and without spectacle. There was no unnecessary force, only accountability, the kind that arrives when cruelty finally meets consequence. The aftermath was quieter, but no less powerful. News traveled fast through Briar Hollow, shaking the town from its comfortable indifference. People who had once looked away were forced to confront their silence. Mara did not seek attention or sympathy. She returned to her routines slowly, healing both visible and invisible wounds. But something had changed within her. The farm no longer felt like a cage of isolation. It felt like reclaimed ground. Elias stayed longer than planned, walking the fields with her in the daylight, listening as she spoke more freely than she ever had before. He never framed himself as her savior, never diminished her courage. He reminded her that asking for help was not weakness, that strength could be quiet and still demand respect. Together they began rebuilding not just fences, but trust, hosting community gatherings on the farm, turning a place of pain into one of connection. Mara's story became a quiet ripple of change. Other voices in town found the courage to speak, to confront small injustices before they grew monstrous. Kindness returned in simple forms, neighbors offering help without being asked, children learning that gentleness was not something to mock. The oak tree still stood, but it no longer symbolized fear. It became a reminder of survival and the unbreakable bond between two people who refused to let cruelty define them. Before we reach the ending, here is a special request. Please leave a comment sharing what moment in this story stayed with you the most, or what kindness means to you personally. As the seasons shifted and the fields turned gold under the sun once more, Mara stood stronger than ever. Not hardened by what happened, but grounded by it. She learned that courage does not always roar. Sometimes it endures, waits, and makes one call at exactly the right moment. Elias eventually returned to his duties, but the farm remained a place of safety, love, and quiet resilience, a testament to what happens when compassion and accountability walk hand in hand. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of the power of standing up for one another, please engage with this video by liking, sharing, and leaving your thoughts below. Your interaction helps keep stories of humanity, justice, and kindness alive, and together, we can make sure they are never drowned out by cruelty again.